Harold Lloyd, the man who became synonymous with silent film comedy, nearly lost everything in a single moment of miscalculation. In the early 1920s, Harold Lloyd was posing for promotional photos on a film set when he picked up what he thought was a harmless prop bomb. It wasn't. The device exploded in his hand, sending shrapnel flying and leaving him temporarily blinded. He lost 2 fingers on his right hand, a devastating injury for anyone, let alone a performer whose physicality was his livelihood. But here's the part that defies belief. Lloyd didn't let the accident end his career. Instead, he wore a custom prosthetic glove to hide his injury and continued performing death-defying stunts, many of which involved hanging from buildings or scaling moving vehicles. Few people realize that the iconic clock-hanging scene in Safety Last was filmed after this life-altering accident. The explosion could have ended his life, but instead it became a hidden chapter in his legacy, one he never publicly dwelled on. The man who made audiences laugh was quietly enduring a pain most would never know. Wallace Reid. Wallace Reid, the matinee idol of the silent film era, came dangerously close to death while filming a train sequence for the 1917 movie The Valley of the Giants. The scene required Reid to leap from one moving train car to another, a stunt that would terrify even seasoned professionals today. As the train barreled forward, Reid miscalculated his footing and slipped, nearly falling between the cars. His co-star, who was nearby, managed to grab him just in time, pulling him back to safety. The incident left Reid shaken, but the studio insisted he continue filming. What makes this even more chilling is that the production had no safety measures in place. No harnesses, no nets, nothing to prevent a fatal accident. Reid's near fall wasn't just a fluke, it was a symptom of the reckless demands placed on actors during the silent era. The physical toll of stunts like this, combined with grueling work schedules, would later contribute to Reid's declining health. This brush with death on the train tracks was a stark reminder of how far actors were pushed to create the illusion of danger, often at the expense of their own lives. Buster Keaton. Buster Keaton, the master of physical comedy, narrowly escaped death during the filming of the 1924 classic Sherlock Jr. In one of the film's most dangerous stunts, Keaton was required to run along the top of a moving train. As he grabbed hold of a water tower spout to swing down, the spout unexpectedly released a torrent of water with immense force. The impact knocked him off the train and slammed him onto the steel tracks below. What no one realized at the time was that the fall fractured his neck. Keaton, known for his stoic demeanor and refusal to show pain, got up and continued filming as if nothing had happened. It wasn't until years later, during a routine medical examination, that the old neck injury was discovered. The water tower stunt was performed without any safety precautions, and the sheer weight of the water could have easily crushed his skull or caused internal injuries. The fact that Keaton survived, let alone finished the film, is almost incomprehensible. The silent film era's obsession with authenticity meant actors like Keaton were constantly risking their lives for stunts that could have gone fatally wrong in an instant. Errol Flynn. Errol Flynn, the swashbuckling star of the 1930s and 40s, came perilously close to death while filming The Charge of the Light Brigade in 1936. The film's climactic battle scene involved hundreds of horses charging through explosions and collapsing on cue. To achieve this, the production used tripwires to force the horses to fall, a practice that was both dangerous and cruel. During one take, Flynn was thrown violently from his horse when it tripped over a wire. He hit the ground hard, narrowly avoiding being trampled by the stampede of horses behind him. The fall left him with severe back injuries that plagued him for the rest of his life. Adding to the chaos, the explosions set off during the scene were poorly timed, and Flynn was nearly struck by flying debris. The production's lack of safety protocols turned the set into a war zone, and Flynn's survival was more a matter of luck than planning. The incident was so harrowing that Flynn later spoke out against the use of tripwires, though the damage to his body had already been done. Lon Chaney Sr. Lon Chaney Sr., the Man of a Thousand Faces, endured a near-fatal accident while filming The Hunchback of Notre Dame in 1923. To portray the deformed Quasimodo, Chaney wore a heavy harness that contorted his body into a hunched position. The harness, combined with the weight of his elaborate costume, caused immense strain on his back and chest. During one scene, while climbing the cathedral set, the harness slipped, cutting off his air supply and leaving him unable to breathe. Chaney collapsed on set, and crew members rushed to free him from the restrictive gear. He regained consciousness after several minutes, but the incident left him with lasting injuries. Despite the danger, Chaney insisted on continuing the shoot, even as the harness caused him excruciating pain. The physical toll of the role was immense, and the near strangulation was just one of many risks he faced to bring his characters to life. Myrna Loy. Myrna Loy, known for her elegance and wit, faced a terrifying ordeal while filming The Barbarian in 1933. In one scene, Loy's character was tied to a stake as part of a dramatic desert sequence. The set designers used real fire to create the illusion of danger, but the flames quickly grew out of control. A sudden gust of wind sent the fire roaring toward Loy, and the crew scrambled to extinguish it. Her costume began to catch fire, and she was only saved when a quick-thinking crew member threw a blanket over her. Loy suffered minor burns and was visibly shaken, but the production pressed on. What made the incident even more alarming was the lack of fire safety measures on set. The flames had been set far too close to the actress, and no one had anticipated how quickly they could spread. The near disaster highlighted the reckless conditions actors often faced, even in scenes that were supposed to be carefully controlled. Jean Harlow. Jean Harlow, the platinum blonde bombshell of the 1930s, narrowly escaped death while filming Hell's Angels in 1930. During the production, a scene required Harlow to stand near a plane as it took off, its propellers spinning dangerously close to her. The director, Howard Hughes, insisted on using real aircraft for authenticity, despite the obvious risks. As the plane's engine roared to life, the powerful gusts from the propellers sent debris flying in all directions. A large piece of wood was hurled toward Harlow, narrowly missing her head by inches. The force of the wind knocked her to the ground, and she was left shaken but unharmed. The incident could have been fatal, as the debris was sharp enough to cause serious injury or worse. Hughes, known for his obsession with realism, refused to scale back the dangerous stunts, leaving Harlow and the rest of the cast exposed to constant hazards. The near miss was just one of many risks Harlow faced during the grueling production, which was infamous for its chaotic and perilous conditions. Marlene Dietrich. Marlene Dietrich, the enigmatic star of the Golden Age, faced a life-threatening accident while filming The Devil is a Woman in 1935. In one scene, Dietrich's character was required to stand on a rickety bridge over a rushing river. The bridge, built specifically for the set, was poorly constructed and began to collapse under her weight during filming. As the wooden planks gave way, Dietrich lost her footing and fell into the water below. The river's current was stronger than anticipated, and she was quickly swept downstream. Crew members jumped in to rescue her, but she was nearly pulled under by the weight of her elaborate costume, which became waterlogged and dragged her down. She was eventually pulled to safety, coughing and gasping for air. The incident left her bruised and shaken, but she returned to the set the next day. The production's lack of proper safety measures and the decision to use a real river instead of a controlled set environment turned what should have been a routine scene into a near-fatal disaster. Carole Lombard. Carole Lombard, the queen of screwball comedy, had a terrifying experience while filming They Knew What They Wanted in 1940. In one scene, Lombard's character was supposed to climb a tall ladder inside a barn. The ladder, an old prop, had not been properly secured. As Lombard climbed higher, the ladder suddenly gave way, sending her plummeting to the ground. She landed hard on her back, narrowly missing a pile of heavy equipment that could have crushed her. The fall left her temporarily unable to move, and the crew feared she had suffered a serious spinal injury. After being examined, it was determined she had escaped with only severe bruising, though she was in pain for weeks. The accident highlighted the lack of attention to safety on set, as the latter had been visibly unstable before the scene was shot. Lombard's quick recovery and determination to finish the film masked just how close she had come to a catastrophic injury. Greta Garbo. Greta Garbo, the reclusive star of the 1920s and 30s, faced a harrowing near-death experience while filming The Temptress in 1926. In one scene, Garbo's character was required to cross a river on horseback. The production chose a real river with a strong current, and the horse she was riding became spooked midstream. The animal reared up, throwing Garbo into the icy water. Weighed down by her heavy costume, she struggled to stay afloat as the current dragged her downstream. Crew members rushed to her aid, but the freezing water and her waterlogged dress made it nearly impossible for her to keep her head above the surface. By the time she was pulled to safety, Garbo was shivering uncontrollably and on the verge of hypothermia. The incident left her physically drained and emotionally shaken, but the production continued without significant changes to safety protocols. The decision to use a real river, combined with the unpredictable behavior of the horse, turned what should have been a controlled scene into a life-threatening ordeal. Clark Gable. Clark Gable, the rugged leading man of Hollywood's golden age, came dangerously close to death while filming The Call of the Wild in 1935. During a scene set in the Alaskan wilderness, Gable was required to ride a sled pulled by a team of dogs across a frozen lake. The ice, which had been deemed safe by the crew, began to crack under the weight of the sled. As the ice gave way, Gable and the sled plunged into the freezing water. The dogs, still harnessed to the sled, panicked and thrashed in the water, making it nearly impossible for Gable to swim to safety. Crew members rushed to pull him out, but the freezing temperatures and the weight of his soaked clothing made the rescue difficult. Gable was eventually dragged to shore, shivering and barely able to speak. The incident left him with frostbite on his hands and feet, and production was delayed while he recovered. The decision to film on a real frozen lake without proper safety measures nearly cost Gable his life. James Cagney. James Cagney, known for his tough guy roles, had a close call while filming The Public Enemy in 1931. In one scene, Cagney's character was supposed to be ambushed in a dark alley during a rainstorm. To create the effect, the crew used high-pressure hoses to simulate heavy rain. However, the hoses were set to an unsafe pressure, and the force of the water knocked over a large lighting rig positioned above Cagney. The rig came crashing down, narrowly missing his head by inches. The impact sent shards of glass and metal flying, and one piece struck Cagney on the shoulder, leaving him with a deep gash. Drenched and bleeding, he insisted on finishing the scene before seeking medical attention. The accident could have been far worse, as the falling rig weighed several hundred pounds and would have caused fatal injuries if it had hit him directly. The chaotic conditions on set, combined with the lack of proper equipment checks, turned a simple rain scene into a near tragedy. Barbara Stanwyck. Barbara Stanwyck, known for her versatility and grit, nearly lost her life while filming Annie Oakley in 1935. In one scene, Stanwyck's character was required to stand near a target while a co-star fired live ammunition to demonstrate Annie's sharpshooting skills. The production, in a shocking lapse of judgment, opted to use real bullets instead of blanks for authenticity. During one take, a bullet ricocheted off the metal frame of the target and whizzed past Stanwyck's head, missing her by mere inches. The sound of the ricochet and the close call left her visibly shaken, but she insisted on continuing the scene. The crew, however, realized the danger and switched to safer methods for subsequent takes. The incident underscored the recklessness of early Hollywood productions, where actors were often placed in real physical danger for the sake of realism. Stanwyck's calm under pressure masked just how close she had come to a fatal accident. Gary Cooper. Gary Cooper, the embodiment of the strong, silent type, faced a terrifying accident while filming The Plainsman in 1936. In one scene, Cooper's character was required to ride a galloping horse through a battlefield strewn with explosions. The pyrotechnics team miscalculated the timing of one of the charges, and an explosion went off directly beneath Cooper's horse. The blast sent the animal rearing up, throwing Cooper violently to the ground. He landed hard, narrowly avoiding being trampled by the panicked horse. The explosion also sent debris flying, and Cooper was struck in the leg by a piece of shrapnel, leaving him with a deep cut. Despite the injury, he returned to filming after a brief recovery, though the incident left him with a limp for several weeks. The lack of coordination between the stunt team and the pyrotechnics crew turned the scene into a chaotic and dangerous ordeal, with Cooper lucky to escape without more serious injuries. Douglas Fairbanks Sr. Douglas Fairbanks Sr., the original swashbuckling hero of Hollywood, had a near-fatal accident while filming The Black Pirate in 1926. In one of the film's most daring stunts, Fairbanks was required to slide down the mast of a ship using only a knife to slow his descent. The stunt, performed without any safety equipment, went horribly wrong when the knife slipped from his grip. Fairbanks lost control and plummeted down the mast, crashing onto the ship's deck below. He landed on his side, fracturing several ribs and narrowly avoiding a fatal head injury. The impact left him winded and unable to move for several minutes, and production was halted while he recovered. Fairbanks, ever the perfectionist, insisted on performing the stunt again once he had healed, this time with modifications to ensure his safety. The incident highlighted the extreme physical risks he took to create the thrilling action sequences that defined his career. Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford, the fiercely determined star of Hollywood's golden age, narrowly escaped death while filming Dancing Lady in 1933. In one scene, Crawford was required to perform a dance routine on a massive, elevated stage set with moving parts. During filming, a mechanical malfunction caused one of the stage's rotating platforms to shift unexpectedly. Crawford lost her balance and fell toward the edge of the platform, which was over 20 feet above the ground. She managed to grab onto a railing at the last second, dangling precariously as crew members rushed to pull her to safety. The fall could have easily resulted in severe injuries, or worse, as there were no safety nets or harnesses in place. Crawford's hands were bruised and bloodied from gripping the metal railing, but she insisted on continuing the shoot after a brief rest. The malfunction was later traced to a miscommunication between the set designers and the operators, a mistake that nearly cost Crawford her life. Gloria Swanson. Gloria Swanson, the glamorous star of the silent and early sound eras, faced a terrifying accident while filming Madame Sans-Gêne in 1925. In one scene, Swanson's character was required to walk through a lavish ballroom as a massive chandelier was lowered from the ceiling. The chandelier, a real antique weighing hundreds of pounds, was suspended by a single cable. During filming, the cable snapped, sending the chandelier plummeting towards Swanson. She managed to leap out of the way just in time, but the heavy fixture grazed her shoulder, leaving her with a painful bruise. The crash sent shards of glass flying across the set, and several crew members were injured by the debris. Swanson was shaken but unharmed beyond the bruise, and she later joked about the incident, though it was clear how close she had come to disaster. The chandelier's fall was later attributed to a poorly maintained rigging system, a dangerous oversight that could have had fatal consequences. Janet Gaynor. Janet Gaynor, the first ever winner of the Academy Award for Best Actress, had a near-death experience while filming Sunrise, A Song of Two Humans, in 1927. In one of the film's most dramatic scenes, Gaynor's character was required to row a small boat across a stormy lake. To create the storm effect, the crew used powerful wind machines and wave generators, but the equipment quickly became uncontrollable. A sudden surge of water capsized the boat, throwing Gaynor into the lake. The weight of her soaked costume dragged her under the surface, and she struggled to stay afloat. Crew members dove in to rescue her, but the strong waves made it difficult to reach her. By the time she was pulled to safety, Gaynor was coughing up water and on the verge of unconsciousness. The incident left her physically exhausted and emotionally shaken, but she returned to filming after a brief recovery. The unpredictable nature of the storm effects and the lack of safety precautions turned the scene into a life-threatening ordeal. Tyrone Power. Tyrone Power, the dashing leading man of the 1930s and 40s, came dangerously close to death while filming The Rains Came in 1939. In one pivotal scene, Power's character was caught in a massive flood, with water rushing through the streets of a village. To create the effect, the production team released thousands of gallons of water onto the set, but the force of the artificial flood was far greater than anticipated. Power was swept off his feet and slammed into a wooden structure, leaving him momentarily dazed. The powerful current dragged him toward a pile of debris, where sharp wooden beams and metal fragments threatened to impale him. Crew members waded into the water to pull him out, but the chaos of the scene made the rescue difficult. Power emerged with deep bruises and a gash on his leg that required stitches. The incident exposed the dangers of using uncontrolled water effects, as the sheer force of the flood could have easily caused far more serious injuries or even drowned him. John Barrymore. John Barrymore, the legendary actor of stage and screen, faced a life-threatening accident while filming Don Juan in 1926. In one of the film's climactic sword-fighting scenes, Barrymore insisted on performing his own stunts to maintain authenticity. During a particularly intense duel, his co-star's sword slipped from their grip and struck Barrymore across the face. The blade narrowly missed his eye, slicing deep into his cheek and leaving him bleeding profusely. The wound required immediate medical attention, and Barrymore was rushed off set to receive stitches. The injury left him with a visible scar, which he later incorporated into his rugged on-screen persona. The accident was a result of the production's decision to use real swords instead of dulled props, a choice that added to the realism but placed the actors in significant danger. Barrymore's insistence on performing the stunts himself, combined with the lack of proper safety measures, turned the scene into a near-fatal moment. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and comment. Also, consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell to get notified of our newest videos. Thanks for watching.